one actually works. Testing, testing, testing. All right, it is noon here, local time in Madrid. This is the Wish Working Group. I'm Sean.
And I'm Niels Omer. Thank you for joining.
Here's the IETF notewell. Policies and procedures related to the standards process, how to act, copyright, etc. Here's the note really well. This is mostly about treating everybody with respect. If you have any problems, you can contact us or others like the OBUDS team, etc. It's Thursday, so hopefully everyone's seen these a lot. All right, meeting tips. Please make sure to join the meeting with the meeting thing so that because that's how we're going to try to do the queue, because we have some people that are remote. We have 13 people total. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, like 10 people in here, so that's doing all right. It's pretty normal for us. This is about an appropriately sized room, so I'm not too worried. Next time they'll put us in a closet. And this is our cute slide.
Fellow members of the group pointed out that right in front of the hotel, we have like a thank you to Sergio, who basically did most of the work so far on all the drafts. So bravo, Murillo. Probably I'm butchering the name. Sorry about that, Sergio.
And our agenda is quite straightforward. We have exactly one active working group document. And so we're going to be diving into the GitHub repo to do things. Dan, are you here? Yes, Dan. So we have a couple of, we have an option. Either I can share my screen and go to the repo and you can tell me where to go, or you can grab, you can share your screen. I can stop sharing and you can share your screen and then do it however you want. Which would you prefer?
Do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, I can do that. I'm ready to go. And then this, do I want to share a screen? I do want to share a screen. Which screen is it? Let me share this one or that one? Yes. Allow to share a window. Let's do that. And then I get to pick one. There we go. All right. So this is our egress. Where would you like me to
go? Let's go to the pull request. And that's like our starting point for everything.
All right. That's where I started. Well, is it clear? Because that is pretty crappy. Oh, there we go. It fixed itself.
There we go. It fixed it. Yeah.
Way to go, video codec people, because you're in the room. I appreciate whatever button you hit.
So do you want to head over to files changed? Because there's too many comments. I did think about making a new pull request, but no, we're going to stick with this one.
All right.
So this is in response to, I think, issue number 12, which says, let's revisit server sent offers. The previous version of this pull request was done as a draft. And basically we had client offer mode and we had server offer mode. And after lots of conversation, we decided on a new way of doing things. And so this is basically just taking in all of that information from our online meeting a couple of months ago now, and making it into something proper. So first thing first, there's no client offer and there's no server offer mode. You now, if you scroll up just a smidge, you'll see that we now do a post with an offer all of the time from the client, whatever that client is, and then it's up to the web endpoint, the server, to say whether or not they accept that offer or not. If they don't accept that offer because they don't support client offers and they always want to do server offers, or sometimes want to do server offers, then they can reply with a 202 accepted. This is up for debate. I'm not sure if it's the right status code or not, but it replies with a 202 instead of a 201, and it replies with an offer. And so 201 just didn't really fit because we haven't created anything, and having a different HTTP status code means it's very easy to go, oh, this isn't an answer, this is an offer, without having to parse SDP, etc. Then if we so we send back the offer, the counter offer, and then the endpoint, the player, sorry, says, great, I'm going to send back an answer. This is a must. The player must support sending offers and sending answers, and it sends back a patch, but it doesn't send it to the web endpoint URL, the original URL. It sends it to the web session URL, and this is something that happened in WIP. With me and Lorenzo were talking yesterday. We used to call this a resource URL, but in WIP it got changed to a WIP session URL, and so that's been Sergio's put all of that into the web stuff. So that's why it says web session, not web resource. And that's the gist of it. The main thing that have we kind of done what was agreed a couple of months ago now, and then B, what is the correct status code? 202 200 2XX feels right, because like we did accept it, but we're going back with a counter offer. So like a 4XX doesn't feel right, but at the same time, like we have accepted it, but we've replied with, so is a 202 correct? Should it be something else, etc. And then I think the rest of it is just a load of language around the fact that the client has to, as a must, it has to offer support offers, and it has to support answers. And what else? Yeah, 201 versus a 202. And then the fact that we should send receive only, or send only, or inactive, etc. in the SDP. But most of it is the same as what was already in the draft. It's just the fact that we now don't have a server offer mode. It's all just one thing. You can send an offer, you might get back an answer, or you might get back an offer.
Does anyone in the room here have like any thoughts on 202 or different code?
John Lennox, I think we need an HTTP expert. None of us have the.
Yeah. I agree.
I was about to say, like in worst case, this is going to we're going to get pointed out at the
end.
Basically, at the end, what's the appropriate, or we can ask for help earlier. I don't know. Yeah. Sean, do you have any?
I mean, so we can ask for like an HTTP dir review. I think because there's actually a director for HTTP, but I would like to. I mean, if that's the one thing that we're waiting on, that doesn't seem like it's a big deal. Like if this looks and sounds like what was agreed, and that's where I'm looking for a couple of people to say, like, if it's not, you need to get to the microphone and say something. So I'll ask it in the negative. The only thing I will note is when you said it's a must, should this be a 2119 must, as in capitalized, where it says a web player must support processing both FTP answers?
I think I cover it further down. I think the top one is a general
description.
This is how it is. I think I cover it slightly lower down.
I mean, yeah, you request the content type there.
Must. I'm just having a quick look now. Yeah, the HTTP post request must have a content type of application SDP, and if the web endpoint chooses to accept the client's SDP offer, it must generate an SDP answer according to the JSEP rules. And then if the web endpoint chooses to reject the client's SDP offer, it must generate its own SDP offer according to JSEP rules.
Okay, great, cool. So it's, yeah, I mean, sorry. So all these words are basically taking the, the picture is worth 1,000 words, and this is the 1,000 words. So, all right, cool. So I guess we're going to be good and explicit about this, as Jonathan's getting to the microphone.
Jonathan Lennox, yeah, I guess my one question is how, I mean, presumably the server isn't going to keep its offer stayed outstanding forever. And because this is a separate HTTP offer, there needs to be some guidance of, how quickly do you have to respond, and at what point can the server give up?
It's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. Answers on a postcard. I guess, yeah, let me go and have a look at what other what SFUs do server offers today. So Janus, as an example, must have some of this already defined. So it would be good to kind of just follow what SFUs already do today. But I don't have an answer for that off the top of my head. I am writing it down and sorted.
Further, someplace where you can ask for reviews, but whatever, I'll figure this out later. There's a way you can ask for early reviews, or even when we get to the stage where it leaves the working group, we can specifically ask and point this out, is this the right error code? I think that's covered. So if this basically sounds okay, except we need to add something to deal with lifetimes, it's going to be a pretty quick meeting.
Should the lifetime just be a header response to tell you how long you've got? Because then it's up to the SFU in question. Well, not necessarily an SFU, whatever the WebRTC server is. Is it up to? Do we just send it back in a header to say this offer can live for X period of time?
So our area director has just walked in, who does know a thing or two about HTTP. So we can ask him these questions.
Mike Bishop, shoot.
So the first thing was about the response code.
Okay.
Dan, you're probably better to explain it than me.
I'll explain it. Yeah. So in WEP, we now allow a WEP endpoint, i.e. the server, to send back an answer, which is what happened before, and we send back a 201 created because we've created a session. However, the server can now respond with its own offer, a counter offer, and then the client would then send back an answer. The status code of that counter offer is up for debate. Created doesn't feel right because we haven't created anything at that point in time. However, I've put a 202 accepted because we have accepted the offer. We've just then decided to counter offer within that response, and it is an okay response. So it should be a 2x. It shouldn't be a 4x, I don't think, in my personal opinion. And so the best one that fit for me was 202 accepted, but I'm not sure.
So what is the client going to do after it gets this counter offer? Is it going to send another counter offer that says, yes,
No,
I will take those terms?
It must send back an answer if it's going to set up the session.
So what is the answer in this case? Is it another HTTP request, or are we switching to a different? Yes.
So
okay.
it's another HTTP request to a different URL, different resource.
Okay.
And I think the main reason for a different status code was to make it easier for the client to detect whether the server has accepted its offer and it gets back an answer, or whether the server is sending a counter offer, basically.
Okay. So I think 202 accepted is defensible. The one that immediately came to my mind was 302 see other.
Okay.
To say so 300 series is a redirection. So to say, go over here, give it back the URL of where it would post its new offer. Body is optional, I believe.
What does Mozilla have to say?
Oh, 302 found. 303 is see other.
303 see other.
Maybe that's pretty impressive.
Oh, that's quite nice. because the 202 was going to have to give back the resource header to say, oh, here's where the resource actually lives. This 303 would be actually you're going over here, and please, and here's a response offer to go along with it.
Cool. We have one more. Does that work?
I think so.
Yeah, cool. I mean, we'll put it in there. We'll get review. I mean, that's the whole point, right? And I guess the other question was about lifetimes.
So basically, how, since this is creating this 303 creates state on the server, we need to have some way of saying how long you have to send to resolve that. That would expire?
Possibly. I'd have to think about that one. When you're going to get review for it, particularly if you think this is thorny around the use of HTTP, I'll just point out we do have an HTTP directorate.
That's what I said right before you walked in the door, but I'm like, if we can talk to somebody who's on it.
Okay.
So I think what we can do, and then maybe we can dig around, Dan, you can dig around and look for like if there's an expires header or something that we can include in there. And then when we do the write-up, we'll make sure to note, like, because we can specifically ask for directory reviews, right?
Yes.
And when we do that, we can point this out that this is specifically what we're looking for. It saves us some time too. Cool. All right. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think with that, the PR is like ready to merge, or
Yeah, once I've changed the 202 to a 303 and said how to use it, from my perspective, it's ready to merge. I'd like to get at least one or two other people reading it and saying, yeah, this is great. But yeah.
So
I can definitely give it a read.
all right, cool. So that's good, but somebody in the working group would be great too. Would anybody like to volunteer? We can go forward with two, but still, even better. We can maybe ping some people on the list.
Yep.
Or via GitHub. That is great.
Yeah, Lorenzo's saying he's already read it and gave me some feedback. He did that with him out of GitHub yesterday.
Yeah, I mean this request is voluminous, so trying to get to the bottom is where people put their stuff. All right, cool. So that'd be great. The only other open pull request is to add contributors, and so you can merge that at your leisure. And I believe that's it.
Going over the open issues, or
Oh,
no?
so I guess that's a question. Sorry.
There are other open issues, and one of them Sergio opened to define multi-codec support in server-sent offers. So I would like to have a chat about that now.
Okay.
The rest of them we don't have to get done for V1. I would like to, if like as many of these required as I can now that this PR is hopefully fixed and done. If I can get as many of these air quote required ones kind of off the ground, because I think there are things in here that would be good to have in V1, but I don't think that they should stop V1, if that makes sense. I'd like to have a quick look at them and see whether or not they're quick win type things. But the define multi-codec one we've never talked about because server-sent offers wasn't a thing for a long time. So Sergio's come in and said there are cases when it makes sense to have different codecs available depending on the resolution, or even switch between different sources. If server-sent offers are used, the viewer client could restrict the returned list of codecs and select a single codec, preventing this use case. To resolve that, we may add a WebRTC restriction that the client must return all the codecs it supports on the answer. My gut is that we shouldn't force the client to send all codecs, because there could be a very good reason not to. For example, just battery usage on a mobile device. And if you know that your device prefers to use, H.264 or whatever, or your application really uses H.264, why should you be forced to? But that's my personal opinion. So I'm curious what other people think. I see what Sergio is saying here, in that it could break WEP from a provider who wants to be able to say switch between 2 camera feeds without having to do any new WEP requests. And you just want to switch between, the camera was H.264, but now it's VP8. But if the client never offered VP8, then you can't, just change the camera. So I completely see what Sergio is saying, but I disagree we should force users to do that.
Nils Omer as an individual. One is that this problem arises only in a scenario of, like, as you said, either multiple sources or something like this, and the server basically going for the server send offer case, right? You could argue that the same problem arises, like, that if the client offers a list of codecs and the codec from the source is not in that list from the client, then you have the same problem. You cannot, like, switch to that source, right? I think I agree that, like, I wouldn't require the client to do something about it. I would rather basically tell the server side, like, well, you just got an SDP answer back. It says a single codec, then therefore you cannot switch the sources or something like this. It's more like ends up like you on the server side, you need to drop this feature basically if the client behaves this way.
So Sean Turner, as an alternative to your point, is you could do a should and then list all the reasons that you could come up with for why you wouldn't do it. That would be a middle ground. So
okay, I'll add in on that one. I'll do this in this pull request that we're actively working on because it's server sent offers related. I'll add in a should for the client offering as many codecs as possible.
Because we know now that the ISG, when you put a should in there, you got to say why or what the reason you would go the other way. So if we're gonna do that, then come up with some reasons, and there could be others, but that's unless you got a good reason, and then 3 that maybe make sense or 2.
Plus, all right, give reasons. Great.
Lorenzo. Lorenzo, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to enable the right microphone there. So I just wanted to, I mentioned on the chat that the actual reason Sergio wanted all those codecs to be available was that he wanted to actually be able to pre-create web endpoints before there was actually any source available. And so in that case, he may not know what codec the actual publisher would actually feed. And so in that case, if, for instance, you end up preferring H.264, but then the publisher actually is using VP8, then you subscribe to an endpoint where you won't be able to get any codec back at all. So I do see a valid reason why Sergio would want this, which was one of the main reasons why he wanted client-side offers in the first place. So I personally don't find any reason not to meet him halfway on that part, because that may actually have a good reason. There is actually a good reason for this to be there. So I don't know if this could be problematic for some other service and so on, but in general, as a server, you can also basically just offer a single codec if that's really the only codec that you want to offer. And so I think that making sure that on the client side we make it as flexible as possible is actually the best way to make sure that both client and server side offers work as expected in this case.
Okay, where do you want me to go next?
I think Lorenzo pointed this out in the chat just a second ago. Discoverability might be nice to have, especially if we'll have HTTP people to look at it. I think we already did ask HTTP people on this one, and hold on, I'm just opening this up. Discoverability is a web URL. I think we asked
them and got like multiple answers, not a very conclusive one, unfortunately, as far as I remember.
So yeah, I think this would be a great one to have in for V1. It's a problem today. Imagine a player that can, you give it an HLS URL and it knows how to play HLS. You give it a different URL and it knows how to play that because it's got a file extension or whatever. Web, we've got no way of knowing that a URL is a web URL today. So I think it would be a very good thing to be able to then get support from these, web players that you give it a URL and it just goes plays it. But it is a challenging one, as proven by the mailing list, where we asked HTTP people how to do it.
Yeah, I think if I need to summarize, I think there were like some folks basically suggesting a URL scheme, why not? And others are like, hell no. And then basically the other option is like the postfix on the URL, kind of like a file type, which looks like a file type, which then other people hate. But it doesn't seem there's like a really great solution to this problem so far. I don't know what, like, we can ask again, or not sure how to proceed with this.
I think we probably just have to ask again. Yeah, I mean, it's ask again and then lean on a friend. So, let's take an action item for the chairs to see what we can come up with. Because yeah, I mean, every time like you talk about doing a new scheme, people cringe. But I've been in multiple other working groups where people have defined other schemes and they weren't cringing. So maybe viewpoints have changed. Who knows?
I just realized I said at the end I provided a possible way of doing this in this other PR. Hold on, let me have a look.
Let's go. Going over there.
The idea of having a get on .web is really quite interesting. It would also return JSON or 0404. The web extension allows for easily knowing if the URL is a web URL or not. You'd call this endpoint and it would give you your metadata about the server, codec supported, modes offered, what URL you should be doing for your web request in the first place, because that original path doesn't have to be your web endpoint path. Yeah, it goes back to using .web and then kind of abusing .web for, basically an HLS manifest file that gives information, but instead of HLS, it gives back information about your server and anything else that you want to know about that web session, that web possibility. Okay. Yeah, the other ones are all pretty well documented, I think. And it's just, I'm more than happy to, now that main thing was waiting for this to be kind of decided upon so we could merge it in and then base anything else off of that. So we've got a backport RFC editor changes from WIP in. I think that's mostly done, but I'll go double check that. That's number 36. The client must silently ignore unknown fields in events. 29. That's super easy, and like everyone agreed that that's a good point. I think, and server sent events. I think we agreed that server sent events were going to be moved out to an extension. They are a separate file at the moment. as a separate extension. So that's fine because we can do that completely separately of V1. And then, so that means that the better efficiencies for server sent events via data channel, that would get moved out to that other one. And mute unmute extension, that would go into that other one. And then handle codec negotiation error and define behavior if publish stream ends. I think the publish stream ends one is just a case of, well, your stream has ended, and it's just like a normal WebRTC stream ending. You can't go do a webhook call or anything like that to announce it. And yeah, handle codec negotiation error is probably fairly simple. I think the only things that were kind of stopping all of this was server sent events getting merged in before anyone wanted to move on, unless anyone disagrees with me.
Dun, dun, dun. So I guess the big question that I have, being Niels is the good chair, I'm the bad chair. When do you think we might be able to get these wrapped up? Should we try to propose an interim? You know, no one works in August, so like, you know, maybe in like late September or something, where we could review these.
Yeah, I mean, I think the current, I don't know the IETF rules as well as everyone else, so I apologize. The current draft has expired, I think. So it would be very nice to get this pull request merged, and with also the result of number 37, the multi-codec support in server sent offers, get that merged, and get a new V1 out, a new draft out, so that it's not expired. Because I know how devs look at expired drafts as, well, that died. So I would say let's try and get that resolved, and then have all of these ones that have required next to them, with an answer of a yes or a no with a pull request on it, and say, well, if it's not done by the end of, if it's not ready by the end of August, it won't go into V1.
Okay. I mean, I'm good with that. So if you can get the other ones in fairly quick, you can spin a new version at your leisure whenever you have time, and then that'll be clean. And then, yeah, you just make the PRs and link them all as you would. And if you want to put the self-imposed deadline at the end of August, that's great. And then that'll give us some time. We give it a month for people to look at it, and, you know, maybe in October we have an interim to see what happens. And then if that doesn't resolve it, we can have another meeting in November, and try to drive forward and get done. So yeah, that sounds great, actually. Yeah. So again, the only time that keep a draft from expiring, you can update the draft by just changing the dates and the version. That's totally okay. And I mean, you might have tried to done something last week, and it was of course closed. There's a submission window is closed 2 weeks before every in-person meeting to give people time to read it. So that's the only time it really closes. Then after that, you can make as many versions as you want.
Okay.
All right. Does anybody have anything else they want to talk about?
So I'm just reading through the chat. So Mike suggested 300 multiple choices. Jonathan said there aren't multiple choices. Is putting expires on 3xx weird. Mike, well, the choices are, okay.
Okay. So I think we've concluded that 300 probably will not work. The other candidate I came up with is 406 not acceptable, where the server says, no, I don't like what you proposed, but the server is able to say, but this thing over here would be acceptable. I haven't found anything to specify this offer is good for this amount of time. Expires is kind of the closest because that's dealing with caching. So kind of.
Okay.
So I will defer to y'all on exact semantics for this protocol.
Which code did you say was the one which worked?
406 not acceptable.
And then the other one, Mike said, adding a JSON manifest layer for discovery seems like a fair bit more scope to take on. Yes, 100%. Not saying it might not be useful, but it might be a lot for working groups to take on. Yes.
Yeah, to me, it sounds like the either that extra work for defining the JSON and all of that, or the URL schema, I guess.
Yeah. I potentially we could do a middle, a halfway house, right? Have that URL that defines that it is a web URL but then have an extension that then, does metadata later on if we even need it anymore. The main reason for the metadata before was so that you could figure out whether or not a server supported server sent offers or not. And we don't have that anymore. So potentially we don't even need this metadata anymore. And it's just a case of discovery. So I'll concentrate on discovery, not metadata, for trying to get number 15 sorted.
I guess with that, we're going to give everybody 20 minutes back.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bless you. I mean, he's going to get a yeah, I just think it's easier. There's actually things that sometimes you